It's been 1 year since COVID-19 was declared a state of emergency by the governor here in Utah. Hear from the former governor, Gary Herbert, as he looks back on the state's response, as well as those dealing with long-term effects of this virus 1 year later.
Stimulus checks could start hitting bank accounts this month, but there are some complications. In New York, I'm Alex Hogan. When you could expect to receive your payment coming up.
Their answer is that since 2018, they've put up affordable housing. Well, I want to know where it's at. Somebody do something and show where the affordable housing is.
Rose Park residents on the brink of eviction hear their pleas for help as new apartments may soon be built where their homes stand now.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Most people were trying to do everything they could to show respect for their neighbor, to help them when they had difficulties, or they're out of work, give them help when they were sick.
1 year ago today, then Governor Gary Herbert issued a state of emergency in Utah for COVID-19, even though we had not yet had a case here in Utah at that point. But that would all change in just a matter of hours. Since then, of course, our world has completely changed as we knew it. Thanks so much for joining us tonight as we look back at the sobering milestone. I'm Amy Nay.
And I'm Brian Cheney. We've got team coverage for you tonight. Diego Romo shows us how health experts and so-called long haulers are reflecting on the past year.
But we start with Spencer Joseph, who is live at the Capitol for us. He spoke one-on-one with former Governor Gary Herbert about his feelings as we look back.
And as you said, that all would change in a matter of hours, because today is also the 1 year anniversary of the very first case of community detection of COVID-19 in the state of Utah. So it certainly was a busy day for all involved. I spoke with Governor Herbert as well as a couple of other people involved in that key day, and they reflected on their feelings at the time.
Earlier today, I issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency due to the spread of novel coronavirus in our country. And I'd like to let you know that declaring a state of emergency does not indicate that our state is in distress, but we are in a state of readiness.
March 6, 2020, Utah had no cases of COVID-19 yet. Governor Gary Herbert issues a state of emergency proactively.
It was new, and so we did not know. We've had threats of epidemics and pandemics in the past, so we didn't know what to expect. We tried to do everything we could to keep it in control. Our state response systems are prepared to help when we see a diagnosis of COVID-19 in Utah.
And the state didn't have to wait long for that diagnosis.
A few hours later, we found out that the first positive case in Utah had been identified.
The patient is a resident of Davis County and is believed to have been exposed to COVID-19 on the Grand Princess cruise ship.
That just became a really long day.
Joe Doherty was a big part of the communication flow in those initial days.
Coming through to that realization is a really interesting mental game that you have to play with yourself when you realize I'm going to be committed to this for a really long time.
It's across the board, probably the most dramatic thing that's happened in most all of our lifetimes, short of war.
And a shutdown loomed.
We set the goal really pretty simply that we need to protect people's health, but we also want to make sure we protected the economy. And that's really kind of an optimal balance point, which is not easy to find, but I think Utah, by and large, found it.
Former Governor Herbert admits we had our ups and downs.
Particularly as we had kids come back into school, and then those in college. That's where we found we had some spreading, and the casual gatherings where there's no structure.
But with the hard work of Utahns,
we're trying to do the best we can with the information we had at the time, which was really kind of an evolution. We learned more, we did different things, and got to the place we're at.
And for Governor Herbert, that's the biggest thing he learned from the pandemic in those initial days and beyond, the resiliency and hard work of the state.
But what I've come to appreciate more than ever before, that maybe I would not have appreciated without this pandemic, is the goodness of the people of Utah. Our slogan in Utah is Life Elevated. It really is not just a slogan, it is a way of life. It's how we ought to conduct ourselves to elevate us, those that we know, and those that we don't know. That's the core of Utah.
The governor also emphasized that we are not out of the woods yet, that we still have cases here in Utah 1 year later, and things, even though they are looking up, it's not time to let our guard down yet. On Capitol Hill, Spencer Joseph, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thanks so much, Spencer. Well, since Utah saw its first case of COVID-19 on this day 1 year ago, there have been over 375,000 cases in Utah with close to 2,000 deaths from COVID-19.
Well, so much has changed. Fox 13's Diego Romo spoke with an infectious disease expert and a COVID-19 long hauler about the lessons learned along the way.
1 year out from Governor Herbert's emergency declaration, one infectious disease expert says now is the perfect time to celebrate the progress we've made and reflect on the lessons learned from the coronavirus pandemic.
And I think we've been assessing this epidemic literally every day, but thinking about it from an annual perspective, we have learned a lot, we have discovered a lot, and we've accomplished a lot.
Dr. Jay Jacobson says quarantining is one area we could have improved on in the early days of the pandemic.
Quarantine is an effective measure not applied very often in the contemporary world, but in retrospect, we erred in that.
The second and most serious mistake was the rollout of coronavirus testing both nationally and here in Utah.
The fact that we didn't use tests to sample the entire population and get a clear picture, particularly of this disease where many infections are asymptomatic, really caused us all to underestimate its significance.
Dr. Jacobson adds that one area to be proud of is the development of several effective treatment options for COVID-19.
Having all of those are actually wonderful tools that prevent what we most fear in this disease, which is serious illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths.
For Lisa O'Brien, founder of the Utah COVID-19 Long Haulers Group, the anniversary is bittersweet. O'Brien was diagnosed with COVID-19 1 year ago and is still suffering from lingering side effects.
So I've gotten better over the course of the year, but I'm not 100%. There's so many of us that are still, having even slight lingering issues, and it's changed our lives.
And with state legislators recently approving what they call coronavirus endgame legislation that would in part lift the statewide mask mandate on April 10th, O'Brien fears a resurgence of cases and more people suffering from the long-term effects of the virus.
Oh, there's still just a lot that we don't know. And so I think that we still need to be really cautious as we move forward and think about removing these mandates.
And I think the last thing that we want to drop actually is masking in risky situations. It's so easy to continue that it shouldn't be a problem.
Dr. Jacobson says even with the mass rollout of vaccines and the loosening of health safety guidelines, it is still important for people to wear masks and limit social gatherings until herd immunity is established and transmission rates drop. In the newsroom, Diego Romo, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Taking a closer look at the numbers right now, and in today's report by the Department of Health, there were 570 new COVID cases reported. The weekly average percentage of people testing positive for the virus continues to go down. It's at 9.5% right now.
5 more Utahns passed away due to the virus, all over the age of 45, except one woman who was between 25 and 44. One of these deaths occurred before February 13th.
Utah has received more than 1 million doses of one of the 3 COVID-19 vaccines. More than 300,000 people in our state are now fully vaccinated.
Now to a big story in national news. You could be getting another stimulus check in the coming weeks.
President Joe Biden's massive COVID relief bill, which also helps struggling schools and vaccine distribution, has only just one final hurdle before it reaches his desk.
Here's Fox's Alex Hogan with when you can expect to see your payment.
Help is on the way for millions of Americans. On Saturday, the Senate passed President Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package, bringing a third round of stimulus checks one step closer to hitting bank accounts across the country.
This plan will get checks out the door starting this month to the American people who so desperately need the help.
But it's not a done deal yet. The legislation has to return to the House before it can be sent to the president's desk. The House is expected to start debating the revised version on Tuesday, but the clock is ticking as unemployment benefits expire on March 14th. Speaker Nancy Pelosi released a statement saying, quote, "The House now hopes to have a bipartisan vote on this life-saving legislation and urges Republicans to join us in recognition of the devastating reality of this vicious virus and the economic crisis and the need for decisive action." Once the president signs the bill into law, the IRS could start rolling out $1,400 checks within days. Americans making less than $75,000 and married couples with incomes up to $150,000 will receive the full amount, then payments start phasing out. If the previous rounds of pandemic relief were any indication, economists expect consumer spending to skyrocket, giving the economy a much-needed boost. It took the IRS 1 week to start sending out checks in January. This time around, the agency is also dealing with tax returns, potentially delaying the rollout even further. In New York, Alex Hogan, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Utah Senator Mike Lee condemning this revised COVID relief bill, saying, quote, "This bloated, wasteful bill was not written for patients or businesses or workers suffering from COVID. It was written for the Democratic Party. It's a shame and a sham."
And more reaction, this from Utah Senator Mitt Romney, who said on Twitter that he voted against the $1.9 trillion relief package because it's, quote, full of wasteful spending unrelated to urgent pandemic needs. He went on to say, quote, "It's disappointing that the administration and Democrats chose to push through a partisan plan that borrows money for states that don't need it and adds to the national debt."
We hope you stay with us. Lots more ahead on Fox 13 News at 9. Coming up, a lot happening in 45 days, from changes to education to an end to the statewide mask mandate. Fox 13's Ben Winslow has a comprehensive recap of this year's legislative session.
And we tied a record today with some warm but windy conditions ahead of a cool front that has settled in. How will that front impact your Sunday weather? And do we see any snow over the next week? I'll let you know in the forecast.
Lots to get to on your Saturday evening. The 2021 Utah State Legislature is over. In 45 days, lawmakers requested 1,216 bills. They considered 767 bills, and they passed more than 500 of them.
A lot of numbers there to deal with. We've got Fox 13's Ben Winslow, who's been covering it all. He was at Capitol Hill, and he's going to bring us a full recap of the things that now will affect your life.
The 2021 legislative session ended a lot like it began, more muted in light of health restrictions brought on by COVID-19. Lawmakers got regular tests and mask mandates were in the building. 5 in the Capitol tested positive at the start of the session, but we had no cases after that. One lawmaker has been out all session in the intensive care unit.
To learn how to walk and swallow and do all those basic things that we take for granted. So I miss you guys, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
A lot of the legislative session reacted to the COVID-19 pandemic, including a bill negotiated with the governor and Department of Health called the End Game. It lifts restrictions as vaccines increase and cases decline. The mask mandate will be lifted April 10th.
It's much better than it was. The original version of the bill had the mandate ending immediately, and so this was a big push for us. Look, we're vaccinating 25,000 people every day. We want to get through the most vulnerable. We will be through the most vulnerable by April 10th, and so we feel much better about where the bill is right now.
So you're willing to sign it if it goes in?
We would be willing to sign it now. That was one of the pieces that we've been negotiating.
Lawmakers passed about $100 million in tax cuts, including restoring the dependent exemption and removing the tax on military retirement and Social Security income.
We made that happen. It's just a fair thing to do.
The legislature considered dozens of bills on policing in response to Black Lives Matter protests. A number of them change how police use force and put more training in place.
We're overwhelmed, but we're ecstatic because we're getting somewhere.
Republican leaders pushed a major bill asserting more control over the Colorado River and reworking the state's economic engine, and passed a $1 billion bill on infrastructure spending.
If you were to say you could make record investments in public education, provide a tax cut, and at the same time make a big investment in our state parks and our roads, all in the same year at the tail end of a pandemic, I would have told you a year ago you're a little out of your mind.
In a $23 billion budget, education was a big winner, getting a huge boost with hundreds of millions in new money and bonuses to teachers for working in the pandemic.
It needs to happen now.
the controversy that's surrounding the community and the university.
A bill that starts a process to change the name of Dixie State University passed after a lot of debate. Lawmakers will vote on a new name next year.
I'm really proud of being able to have the $50 million overall for housing and homelessness. That's a huge win for Utahns.
And the legislature will be back sooner than you think for a special session on federal stimulus money.
I think once we figure out what the federal, what this new stimulus package is, we will have to come back in and determine the disbursement of that.
The next big political battle will be redistricting. The process to create boundaries for Congress, legislature, and school board begins later this year.
Watch for the month of October and the first part of November for the Independent Redistricting Commission and the Legislative Committee to be in the public asking for input once we get the data. We want your input. Please be there for us.
Now, there's a lot more the legislature did, and we've got a recap at fox13now.com. On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thank you so much, Ben. Now, Utah Governor Spencer Cox has 20 days to review all the bills the legislature passed. He can sign them into law, let them pass into law without his signature, or veto them. Any bill he vetoes, the legislature has the ability to override if they have enough votes.
Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson disagrees with the legislature's passing of the COVID-19 endgame bill. The bill that passed in the final hours of the 2021 session lifts the statewide mask mandate April 10th and other health restrictions after Utah meets vaccine and case thresholds. Now, in a statement to Fox 13, the mayor of Utah's largest county saying, quote, "The legislature clearly has a crystal ball I don't have. I expect we will want to open and move freely, but wear masks in public to protect our kids until they are vaccinated or we reach herd immunity." She added, "I continue to follow CDC guidance, and I'm certain April 10th is too soon."
Well, we sure got a taste of warmer weather today, but it came with some dust. And Breck, I saw the sunset tonight. It almost looked apocalyptic. It had some red hues to it and a little scary out there.
It was. Well, don't worry. We're not seeing any big changes that we have to be concerned with. But yeah, a lot of dust in the air with those winds kicking up throughout the afternoon. But those winds out of the south providing for some warm temperatures. I mentioned that we tied a record, but let's just highlight, though, as we saw this right at sunset across the Salt Lake Valley, the dust is going to settle here for tonight as this cool front changing the wind direction and winds are calming down. Okay, we tied a record today, officially getting up to 70 degrees in Salt Lake City. The last time we saw that warm of a temperature on March 6th, well, it was just last year. But last year we were facing a lot of uncertainty. Thank goodness we've already passed another 12 months and looking like things are looking good to go here. Not only weather-wise, but hopefully a lot of different areas there. On average, we should be in the low 50s. We'll get back there, though, as we look for the upcoming week. We saw this week cool front, which dropped temperatures today. But ahead of that, though, as mentioned, temperatures well above normal statewide. Getting up in the 60s today for the official high in Logan, upper 60s in Provo, even make up to 60 degrees in Price. We saw a string of upper 60s all the way from Delta through Cedar City and mid-70s in St. George. Right now, with that cool front, temperatures have been dropping, not rapidly, as we're still near 50 degrees in Salt Lake City, low 50s in Lehigh. Again, this is where our afternoon highs should be, but temperatures with a weak cool front will allow temperatures to get down into the 30s here along the Wasatch Front. But we're hanging on to the 50s in Delta, upper 40s in Cedar City, and even at this hour in St. George, you're at 59 degrees. Wind direction, an indication of where the front's at. Where we have a westerly, northwesterly flow. Front has already passed through, which has already tracked through Provo, now through Delta, still finding those south winds in Cedar City, St. George as well. As that cool front moves through, it'll change the wind direction. We're not going to see a significant temperature drop across most of the state, but a little more profound, at least defined here across northern Utah, in that we're going to see afternoon highs maybe 5 to 10 degrees cooler for tomorrow. But that still means temperatures look to be above normal, but we won't have the winds, and we will have sunny skies in your forecast for tomorrow. But our eye is set on our next storm system and a stronger cold front that looks to track through Tuesday into Wednesday. As we're seeing that drier air move in, we've got clear skies across northern into western Utah. Still hanging on to some clouds across southwestern Utah. We'll be looking at partly cloudy skies southwest quadrant of the state. So from Cedar City to St. George, that's your situation for tomorrow. Windy still a little bit, or I should say breezy in that region. But again, for most of the state, the winds are calming down, allowing for this weak cool front to track on. There's our next one, though. It gets here again Tuesday. This is bringing the cold air, and it brings more moisture, but it's nothing of great significance, as we'll bring a chance of some showers both for the valleys and mountains. Right now, models are indicating it's kind of a mixture of rain and snow for the valleys, and definitely snow up in the mountains. So again, that's Tuesday into Wednesday. Tonight, mostly clear skies, temperatures down into the 30s, so a colder start for your Sunday, even seeing some 20s in Delta, Park City as well, low 30s in Price. It looks like temperatures in the low 40s in St. George. Tomorrow, a little breezy across southern Utah. Northern Utah, it's calm, it's sunny. Cooler, yes, but enjoyable. And when you don't have the winds and you don't have the dust, it'll really feel nice out there for tomorrow. 63 expected high in Salt Lake City, 65 in Provo. We've got 60s in Vernal, mid-70s in Moab. St. George, you're hanging on to the 70s. A little breezy on Monday. Cool front hits. You'll see a temperature drop Tuesday and even more so on Wednesday. We bring in a chance of showers Thursday and Friday. Not widespread, but we'll see those scattered showers as we head into the weekend. Northern Utah, 60s to upper 60s Monday, but we've got the winds. Rain initially Tuesday, rain changing into snow Wednesday. Mountains picking up anywhere between 4 to 8 inches of snow. At least that's what the models are showing. Once we get past Wednesday, it's partly cloudy skies. Still a little bit cooler, close to where we should be for this time of year, but we get a little hint of winter at least Tuesday and Wednesday.
Thank you, Breck. Still to come soon, some Rose Park residents won't have a place to call home. We'll explain who's forcing them out.
Also, see how the city of Provo is honoring the women in our lives in a big way. We'll be right back. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It was a shaky night last night for some folks who were able to feel a 2.8 magnitude earthquake as it hit parts of the Wasatch Front. We got a few calls about this one. The University of Utah seismograph station says this quake triggered just after 11:30 last night. The epicenter was located 2 miles south-southwest of the town of Walsburg and 14 miles east-northeast of Orem. It was followed by a magnitude 2.0 aftershock 4 minutes later.
Some residents of Rose Park fighting for their homes today. They protested the development of the Kozo apartments at 175 North, 600 West. This development would call for the demolition of 7 single-family homes. Now, residents of these homes say if they're demolished, they won't have anywhere to go and they will be forced to live on the streets.
It disgusts me because maybe I don't have the money to fight them back, but I have the will, and I'm not going to be quiet about this. They can push me out, their money can run me out and off this block, but I will not be quiet about this any longer.
Well, the residents in that area have been given only until March 31st by the city to vacate their homes. International Women's Day is this upcoming Monday, but today Provo had its own celebration for women.
The 6th annual Provo Women's Day featured 6 female speakers, including Provo Mayor Michelle Kafusi. They each held virtual lectures to hundreds of people on the importance and impact women have in Utah.
It's time to proudly be the person you are, knowing it is the most perfect thing you could ever be.
Provo Women's Day also celebrates 101 years since the passing of the 19th Amendment, of course, giving women nationwide the right to vote.
Still ahead here at 9, Salt Lake City police officers working to make their policing fair to everyone. We'll explain some of the changes that one group of people is recommending to make them protect people more equitably.
And don't forget, when you can't watch Fox 13 live, you can watch us streaming online for free on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Just search for Fox 13 on your device. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight at 9:30. In a year where policing continues to be under the microscope, there is work being done in Salt Lake City to try and improve.
A newly formed commission on racial equity in police departments has made its first set of recommendations for the Salt Lake City Police Department. Fox 13's Max Roth reports.
We have the first set of formal recommendations from the Racial Equity and Policing Commission.
The Racial Equity and Policing Commission presented its first set of recommendations to the Salt Lake City Council this week.
This set of recommendations is specifically relating to training for the police department.
Last summer, protests across the country and here in Utah called for changes in policing following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The protest prompted the creation of the commission in Salt Lake City to improve racial equity in police interactions. This week, the commission presented their recommendations. They center around three specific areas: the field training program, the crisis intervention team, and the training academy and in-service training curriculum.
One of the areas that was of concern was the lack of diversity. Out of the 67 FTOs, there's only 6 of color, 2 Hawaiian Pacific Islanders and 4 Latinos. Our recommendation is pretty easy on this one. Try to create a process to target or to outreach to more diverse FTOs.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall says she likes the commission's recommendations.
These recommendations touch critical parts of our department, and I think they have the potential to make an important difference in our work toward greater equity.
We need to have trainers who are local, who know the history of Salt Lake, who can train our officers on why, when they go into a certain community, why they meet with resistance, why the culture is the way it is in a particular neighborhood, to work with them on their implicit bias, to teach them how to respond appropriately when they're working with certain communities and people of color.
Mayor Mendenhall says she plans to review the recommendations along with the City Council and Salt Lake City Police Chief Brown and his officers to figure out the next steps. Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, it's been nearly a year since the death of George Floyd, and people still want to see that he gets his justice. Today, the group Utah Against Police Brutality organized a car caravan in Salt Lake City in honor of Floyd. This comes as a response to the trial against former Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin. Now, this is set to begin on Monday.
Now to just tragic news in Spanish Fork today after a 12-year-old boy was killed in an accident. That boy, we understand, was riding his bike near 1450 West, 4600 South, along with his brother, who was also on a bike, and his father, who was driving a side-by-side pulling a trailer. Police believe the boy may have lost his balance and crashed into the equipment, suffering a fatal head injury. Paramedics tried to save the boy, but they were not successful. The boy's father and brother were not hurt.
Orem police have released the identity of the man accused of stabbing 3 people at the Denny's in Orem last night. 21-year-old Joshua Oropeza was headed to the restaurant with 2 other people when he pulled out a knife and stabbed one of them. He then chased that person into the Denny's, where he stabbed 2 other individuals, according to police. This is before being restrained by people inside of the restaurant. Oropeza is now locked up in the Utah County Jail, charged with aggravated assault and attempted homicide. The 3 victims are recovering from their injuries.
Well, it's no secret the vaccine rollout got off to a bit of a rocky start in some places, but there are some states that have seen success from the get-go. We'll show you how one state has been able to effectively get people vaccinated.
And before we go to the break, let's take a look outside right at sunset for Moab. Had blue sky, a few high clouds around, warm temperatures. We hold on to the warm temperatures for now, but some big changes on the way. When will you see those changes? I'll let you know.
Welcome back. The administration of COVID vaccines around the country has been an uneven process so far, with some states handling it better than others.
One state with success, seemingly from the start, is West Virginia. Maya Rodriguez shows us how they're doing it and explains what other states can learn from them.
In this pharmacy parking lot,
I've been giving shots since day one. It's been busy.
pharmacist Drew Massey prepares the tools of his trade.
I tell you honestly, I think I could give these in my sleep or in the dark.
Administering COVID vaccines in the town of Scott Depot, West Virginia.
And we'll get everybody off the list.
Massey works for Fruth Pharmacy.
In which arm are you going to get the shot in?
A community pharmacy founded more than 50 years ago by Lynn Fruth's father.
I've known half a dozen of these people that have come through today because of being being in the community.
On this day, people over 65 and teachers are in line for their shots.
I think the thing about West Virginia that really sets us apart is people just know each other.
There's something else that sets the state apart: their COVID vaccination rate. West Virginia initially had one of the highest rates of people who received both COVID vaccination doses, not just in the country, but the world. They've since fallen to third place behind Alaska and New Mexico. Still, all three states have challenging terrain that can make it hard to reach some people.
So why have smaller, less well-off, and more rural states had better success in not just distributing the vaccine, but in getting more people to take it in the first place? It may come down to trust.
Trust in the family-owned pharmacies that are often the hallmark of small-town life.
You feel a little poke.
And so a lot of times people go, oh, okay, you know what? I trust what you're saying. I'm going to go ahead and get the shot.
You'll answer these questions.
And then there's the levels of organization behind it that make it possible.
People are so excited to get their vaccine.
So you're getting the Moderna today?
Yes. Before the vaccines were even approved last year, West Virginia began planning for its distribution.
We did use time to plan.
We all meet regularly. Actually, we were meeting before we came out here.
Local Health Department Director Dr. Michael Kilkenny says that made mass vaccinations possible, like this one at an old department store.
Since we've been doing this, we've seen a remarkable decrease in the number of hospitalizations and deaths.
A level of protection people here are looking for.
It's great to have the shots and be, safer.
Back in the pharmacy parking lot, Drew Massey is nearly done for the day.
We tell the employees actually that you'll probably look back on this years later and say, I gave all these vaccines, I did these COVID tests, and you're actually, affecting and saving people's lives. So it makes a big difference.
A big difference that lies in a small syringe. In Scott Depot, West Virginia, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
As a coach, I need to know how they're going to act in that greater community.
It was a sporting competition taking place on a virtual field. See how the event could help some local students pay for college. Morgan?
Yeah, later in sports, the Utes have a little momentum going into the Pac-12 tournament thanks to a crushing win to end the regular season. While this season comes to an end for the Prep, 6 more state champions crowned on Saturday. Back in a bit.
Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday night. We've got a lot of news to talk about tonight and some fun stuff in there as well. It was a sporting event putting player against player, and the playing field was a screen. This week, iTeam USA Utah hosted its second regional event in Kaysville.
Well, up for grabs for students, state titles, scholarships, and prizes. Fox 13's Aaron Cox reports.
169. Stop 354.
Inside Davis High School.
I screwed up.
Students from across Utah are competing for titles, scholarships, and prizes.
We come here looking for talent.
The competition may not look like other sporting events. This one involves snap circuits and computer hardware, and of course, Super Smash Brothers.
Looking at prospective students who want to find a career in the collegiate scene with esports specifically.
Kevin Vanderspeck is the head esports coach at Utah State University Eastern in Price. He is at this competition scouting and recruiting players.
We're looking for students who have good grades because it shows dedication to different things, obviously, who are skilled in the competition because they need to be good to be able to win, and that's just the reality, and students who are willing to learn things and willing to get better, which is another really important aspect of the esports community, is the willingness to work as a team and to work on your own personal skills.
At last year's event, Vanderspeck awarded 2 students with full ride scholarships.
We're changing lives.
Robert Sorensen is the national director for iTeam USA. He says esports is the gate to information technology and computer science. It gives students a connection and a different view of tech.
We purposely use the esports program to teach and help students learn.
Esports became an official high school sport in Utah last year. And like any other sport, Sorensen says esports is a team effort.
They have to work as a team to accomplish the goal. So they do much like a basketball team. Sports teaches us how to collaborate, how to work together.
Sorensen and Vanderspeck say They hope that esports will lead students to a career in the field of computer sciences here in Utah.
What the goal is that we use something that they're already interested in, which is Super Smash Brothers or esports, and then expose them to different things that could pique their interest.
Everybody games.
Erin Cox, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Mean to tell me that Fortnite leads to scholarships? I have to rethink that. All right, let's turn to your weather forecast. Lighting things up for your Sunday. It is going to be nice out there. Some sunshine as we're looking at skies clearing right now. Wind subsiding as we look along the Wasatch Front. The wind direction has changed, and that's going to usher in some slightly cooler air heading in for your Sunday. And look at your car wash forecast. No concerns tomorrow nor Monday. Things begin to change on Tuesday. A stronger storm system tracking through. It's going to bring some colder air and the possibility of precipitation. Now, with this storm, here's some things that we know and are confident about. Temperatures, yes, will be dropping as we're going to go back into the 40s for a couple of days, at least along the Wasatch Front. We're going to see some winds, especially on Monday ahead of this next cold front. And again, it's going to be a stronger cold front coming in from the northwest. Precipitation, well, we know we're going to get a mix, both rain and snow, and that mixture in the valley, snow up in the mountains. How much though? Well, it's not going to be a big storm. We know that. Looks like snow accumulation is really up from the benches towards the mountains. And we're talking about 4 to 8 inches. So again, not a big storm. We're definitely away from that storm cycle that we saw throughout most of February. We've been ushering in this nice warm spring weather and a few showers to go along with it. Now, we had a cool front move through. It's now positioned in central Utah. It'll continue to move further southward and then on towards the east, drier air pushing in. And then as this cold front begins to move closer come late tomorrow into Monday, it'll initially bring in some clouds and then that colder air and cold front tracking in on Tuesday. Let's take a look at the computer models, getting you ready, timing out the storms, what you can expect and how you can prepare each day. So for tonight through tomorrow, no concerns. We start bringing in some clouds though late Sunday. Monday is kind of a partly cloudy to mostly cloudy day. The showers don't hit until Tuesday. Now initially Tuesday morning we could see some mountain showers, so traveling through the canyons could be a concern. But then it's valleys getting into the mix. You're seeing that pink, that's a mixture of rain and snow. So mountain snow and snow levels dropping Tuesday night through Wednesday. Then it's mainly snow as we head into Wednesday, and we start to see some showers towards central and southern Utah Wednesday into Thursday. The showers keep going across the south Thursday into Friday. It's rain in St. George. As you move up in elevation, it will be snow. That storm moves on, at least for southern Utah, not until Friday, but for northern Utah, you start to see a break a little bit earlier on as we go Thursday into Friday. So we really have one storm to look at, and it's going to be extended there, where Tuesday and Wednesday it's northern Utah, but then as we go into southern Utah, it's Thursday and Friday. So it's kind of a slow mover as it will have that impact, and it will bring temperatures down. Now for tomorrow, it's slightly cooler. Hour by hour forecast will start off into the 30s. We'll already be in the 50s as we look towards the lunch hour with an expected high in Salt Lake City, 63 degrees. Now I'm going to call for sunny skies to start off the day. Late afternoon into the evening, we start bringing in those clouds. And for St. George, that means partly sunny skies into the afternoon. Monday, it's clear though. Tuesday, cooler. Showers, as mentioned, Thursday and Friday will be should be dry heading into next weekend. Northern Utah, it's 60s with some winds on Monday. Then the temperature drop. Initially rain turning into snow on Wednesday. Then we're good to go thereafter with a slow climb back into the low 50s by next weekend.
State championship Saturday at Salt Lake Community College today, including Farmington with a chance later to pull the 5A sweep. But we start in the 6A ranks. The upset-minded Davis boys as a 7 seed facing #1 Westlake. Chance Trujillo had an incredible tournament. The brown shirts off to a 6-0 start. The Thunder's turn. Caden Hoppin slipping through traffic. Another one at the stripe, but the darts adding to that nice first quarter. Colby Sims here getting himself involved. Not one tray, try 2 trays to finish with 14 points. And then to end the third, the quarterback off the inbounds to beat the buzzer. A game-high 19 for Trujillo. And Davis shot 66% from the field as a group to break a 19-year state championship drought on the hardwood.
In the summer, we played them, and they worked us. And we knew it would be a tough game. Those guys are freaking legit, and I'm speechless. I can't even describe this feeling right now.
Number 1 versus number 2 for the girls' crown. Harriman led by a point at the midway, only to watch Fremont control the third. Emma Calvert was off the charts. 3-point play by the BYU commit. Nothing doing for the Mustangs. Outscored 17-3 in the quarter. Maggie Mandelson blocks it. Then in the fourth, more Calvert. 30 points and 12 boards for her as they crushed the top seed by 20 to cap a perfect season.
I think it's way cool that we won the title undefeated. We did this freshman year, and I've just been waiting so long for this moment again, and it's just so awesome. I love this.
Now to 5A, Farmington facing Lehigh. The Phoenix using a strong third to take the lead. Truman Hendry beats his man at the block, and then teammate Colin Chandler leading the way with 23 tonight. But the Pioneers were back in business in the fourth. Noah Gonzalez takes the check directly to the bank, 2 of his 21. Then Gonzalez feeding Peter Amakazu, who dunks Lehigh its first trophy raise since 1998. And girls, Farmington Springville in the late game, where this one ended with a buzzer beater. Amber Bettis reverse side, Lady Phoenix up 1. Addison Johnson backing in for the Red Devils. In fact, it was close the whole way, capped by a thrilling final few seconds. Abigail Farrell teardrops to put Farmington up a point with 15 ticks left. No timeout called. Springville with time to win it, and they do. Lauren Deed, an instant folk hero as time expired. Wow, Springville takes it 39-38.
How do you describe it? I mean, look at it. It's amazing. I mean, we've all worked so hard for it.
And shock, 1A champions Panguitch gets it done on the boys' side, while the Paiute girls were also victorious tonight. The Utes have struggled to gain traction this season. Having said that, every now and again, Coach K's group will surprise you. Closing out the regular season at home this afternoon against Arizona State, Utah, with a 2-digit lead. 15 minutes in, Alfonso Plummer had the pipes working at the Huntsman. Then skip pass for Riley Batten to finish off the half in style. Up 13 into the locker room. Half 2, even better. A 57-point second half for the Utes. Brandon Carlson, 3 this time. Just rolling those Sun Devils by 26 and counting. Pella Larson with a triple, followed by Plummer, who finished with 15. Utah on a 19-4 run at one point. Bring out the bench now. Jordan Keller adding a late dunk. Utah came 1 bucket shy of 100 as they win 98-59. They'll be the 7th seed to face Washington in Vegas next week. Another win at Grand Canyon gives UVU the WAC title outright. If they lose, they share it with Grand Canyon. Latrey Darthard spotted corner, but the Wolverines still trailed by 8 late. Then the Lopes put it away. Gabe McLaughlin with his back to the rim, followed by Alessandro Lever. The home team wins episode 2, 74-64. Weber State and Southern Utah both had a shot to nab the top seed at the upcoming Big Sky tournament in Boise. The Wildcats were supposed to play one more, only to have their game against Northern Colorado canceled at the very last minute, meaning all the T-Birds needed to do was win at Portland State, and they get the one. Dre Marin, crafty work inside the paint. Pivot, twirl, and float. Southern Utah big in the second. Harrison Butler running the floor, while John Knight III led the charge with a career-high 26 on 11 of 13 from the field. Not bad for a guard. They finished conference play at 12-2. Weber State settles for the 3 seed. Meanwhile, SUU football at home against Idaho State. Game square at 17 until the Bengals strike Tyler Vanderwall for Xavier Guillory. Extra point no good, though, so here's Southern Utah for the lead. Justin Miller dumps to Judd Cockett with 3:38 left before the second consecutive week now to start the season. They fall in the final seconds of the game. Kevin Ryan from 30 yards for the win. We'll be right back.
On behalf of Alsco Uniforms and the Utah Jazz, drivers, start your engines.
You think there could be a little more enthusiasm with that start your engines? Already, of course, a big all-star weekend for the Utah Jazz, and that was Jazz star forward Joe Ingles, who was honored as the Grand Marshal of a NASCAR Xfinity Series race in Las Vegas this afternoon. He got to do those honors. It was cool to see that. We wish our Jazz players good luck in tomorrow's big game.
Well, he Grand Marshaled it like he was on a Zoom call. That's right. Thanks so much for watching Fox 13 News at 9.
Quick Cast coming up next.